Okay, we've had two ways of looking at realism. Classical realism, which looks at human nature, and neo-realism, which looks at the international system. Two other approaches can also be seen, defensive and offensive realism. Mearsheimer helps us to understand these. He compares himself with Waltz. He says, "The fundamental difference between the two of us is that I believe that states seek hegemony. I believe that they're ultimately more aggressive than Waltz portrays them as being. The aim of states is to be the biggest and baddest. Because if you're the biggest and baddest, then it's highly unlikely that any other state will challenge you. This is the ideal situation to have, to be so powerful that nobody else can challenge you." But Waltz would argue that it's not a good idea to be so powerful, because when you push in that direction, other states balance against you to try to cut you down at the knees. So therein is the distinction between the defensive and the offensive realists. For defensive realists, states will accrue as much power as they need. For offensive realists, states will accrue as much power as they can as they seek to become hegemon. To do otherwise would be irrational. Okay, to finish off, let's revisit those learning outcomes. What realism is and some of its main flavours. Well, realism is an attempt to understand world politics, to explain how the international system operates and why states behave the way they do. It tries to explain why we have war and why we don't have war. Two of its main flavours are classical realism, which looks at human behaviour, and neo-realism, which looks at the international system. Two more flavours are defensive realism, in which states build up as much power as they need, and offensive realism, in which states take as much power as they can with the aim of becoming hegemon. The state-centric assumption. For realists, the state is the primary actor. There is nothing above the state, and states exist in a situation of sovereign equality. That does not mean, however, that states are equal in capabilities. The Anarchy Assumption. The international system is anarchic. There is no world government. States will do what they like, but that means they will spend a lot of time seeking power. The Unitary Rational Actor Assumption. More for the neo-realists than the classical realists, though the division is something of an artificial one. We don't know what's going on in the state, inside the state, and ultimately we don't care, as states will make rational calculations as to what is in their best interests and act accordingly. The state of nature and human nature. For realists, the state of nature was a state of war, and we can apply this to the international system. Human nature is fundamentally not very nice. The role of morality. Morals don't have much of a place in the realist worldview. I'll finish by extending a quotation from Waltz. Earlier, I mentioned that he said, "A lot of people don't like realists." He went on to say, "Realists face the world as it is." Perhaps, and perhaps not. Much of the rest of this course will try to determine whether he was right.